This video is for class 8 chemistry and topic for the day is chemical reactions. So, before going to the chemical reactions, we should know what are chemical changes. What are chemical changes? So, we now know that there are various types of chemical changes from your previous classes like 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. So, chemical changes are those changes in which new substances are formed. So, then what is a chemical reaction? A chemical reaction is also a chemical change, right? So, any chemical change in matter which involves transformation of one or more substances. There might be one substance, there might be two substances, three substances, okay, into entirely different properties. That means it will change into a different substance, right, after a chemical change. So, this kind of chemical change in which a substance is getting transferred into entirely new substance with different properties is known as chemical reaction. So, but what happens in a chemical reaction? Why entirely new substance and a substance with entirely different properties are formed? Let us try to understand this. So, to understand this, we need to know what happens during a chemical reaction. So, a chemical reaction involves breaking of chemical bonds. Breaking of chemical bonds. So, what is a chemical bond? It is a force between any two atoms which holds them together. For example, here if you can see the definition of chemical bond, a chemical bond is an attractive force that holds the atoms of a molecule together in a compound. A chemical bond is trying to hold the atoms of a molecule together, right? So, what happens during a chemical reaction? These chemical bonds between two atoms or groups of atoms of reacting substances, okay, is broken, right? And then after breaking the bond, rearrangement of the atoms are done. Here rearrangement of the atoms are done, making a new bond to form new substances. Hence, new substances are formed because of breaking of these old bonds and then rearrangement and then forming new bonds with the absorption or release of energy. It can be in the form of heat energy or light energy. Let us try to understand with the help of example given in your book. Suppose during a reaction between methane and oxygen. So, suppose we supply heat, okay, to methane and oxygen. So, because of this heat energy, what happens is you can see this small lines here 1, 2, 3, 4. These lines represents bonds. So, these bonds are broken. If you can see here, these lines are broken. That means these bonds are broken, and you can see oxygen bond is also broken. This is because of the energy. Once this bond is broken, now what happens is this atoms tries to rearrange themselves depending upon the reacting capacity of a particular atom. For example, here oxygen is much more reactive than hydrogen, therefore it wants to take the carbon along with it, replacing the hydrogen. So, what happens here is oxygen takes the carbon along with it, but two oxygens are left. Now, why these two oxygens are left? Why not we have 4 oxygens here? We can have oxygen here and we can have oxygen here, but it's not possible. The reason is we have studied something called atomic structure. So, oxygen is satisfied by getting just 2 electrons, but carbon can give 4 electrons. Since carbon can give 4 electrons, so 2 electrons are absorbed by one oxygen atom and 2 electrons are absorbed by another oxygen atom. So, it is fulfilled, right? But hydrogen needs only 1 electron, therefore 4 hydrogens were attached with carbon. Now, remaining 2 hydrogen and remaining 2 oxygen will attach themselves to form water molecules. So, that is how rearrangement of the atoms are done and new bonds are formed. Hence, we have a chemical reaction. A new substance is also formed because of that. Just now we have discussed chemical bond. So, what is a chemical bond? It is the attractive force between the atoms of a molecule to hold them together. Now, these chemical reactions are represented by chemical equations. We have done these chemical equations. Reactions can be represented like you can be represented by a roll number, right. Similarly, a chemical reaction also can be represented by a chemical equation. The substances taking part in the reactions are called reactants. If you have watched the video on the balancing chemical equations, there I have explained. And the new substance formed are called the products. So that means reactants react among themselves during a chemical reaction and products are formed. A new product is formed. For example, sodium hydroxide reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid. Sodium hydroxide here, it reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid to form salt, that is sodium chloride, and water. These chemical reactions can be represented as this equation given here. NaOH plus HCl will give me NaCl plus H2O. So these two things here, sodium hydroxide and HCl are called reactants, and these two things here, NaCl and H2O, that is sodium chloride and water, are called products. So sodium hydroxide and dilute hydrochloric acid are reactants, and sodium chloride and water are products. Okay, this is all for this part of the video. The other part is discussed in the next video.